You're on StratNewsGlobal, and I'm Nitin Gokhale. There's a grim news coming in from Ladakh, as most of you have heard from various media sources and on social media platforms, that three gallant Indian soldiers, one commanding officer of 16 Bihar Regiment, and two of his soldiers have died in violent clashes with PLA soldiers at PP point or petrol point 14 near Galwan last night in Ladakh. There have been grievous injuries to many soldiers on both sides of the divide of the PLA. Also have got several grievously injured soldiers. Indian soldiers have been injured, and I'm afraid that the toll might go up in the coming hours as we speak repeatedly with you. We come back to you. But let me also tell you that what happened exactly is still very hazy, although some information has trickled out and we've got some information from our sources on the ground. I'm going to take you through all that shortly. Lieutenant General T Parnaik, who was Northern Army Commander till 2013 and who had handled the Depsang incident where 19 kilometers the Chinese had come into Indian territory in April and May of 2013, is going to join me. There is some technical issue with his joining the broadcast, but we will come back to him. But let me give you some information to begin with. Both sides at the highest levels in the Ministry of External Affairs and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of China have spoken a number of times to each other. Indian ambassador is in touch with officials in Beijing. Beijing has issued a couple of statements. India has issued one official statement from the army where it has said that 3 soldiers have been killed and there have been casualties on both sides. So what exactly happened is what I'm going to now tell you until General Parnaik joins in. And this is what I've got. Again, as I said, information is sketchy. Don't take it as the final word. We will bring more and more information as it comes in. But this is what exactly happened yesterday. So according to the agreement on 6th of June, the 16 Bihar unit, 16 Bihar regiment is deployed in that area, was waiting at petrol point 14 led by the commanding officer to ensure that the compliance of terms of disengagement which had been arrived at over the last 4-5 days and on 6th June had to be done, and they wanted to ensure that the compliance was done by the Chinese side, who needed to go back about 5 kilometers to post 1, which is about 5 kilometers from petrol point 14. And they were waiting there with about 8 to 10 soldiers. They were supposed to go back to post 1, as I said, to 5 kilometers to the east on their side of the LAC, and according to the disengagement plan. But as dusk fell, suddenly a group of PLA soldiers, maybe a dozen odd PLA soldiers, turned back suddenly and attacked straight away the commanding officer, a colonel level Indian officer, and 2 of his soldiers who was standing next to him, with iron rods and stones, injuring them grievously, but and them knocking them down actually. So that suddenness of the attack obviously took the Indians by surprise, because they were there to only ensure compliance according to the disengagement plan. And for the last 7 days, there had been very cordial discussions between the two sides at petrol point 14. So the moment the CO fell on ground and was injured, the rest of the Indian soldiers, Indian company which was there behind him, they all got into the physical brawl with the Chinese soldiers. The Chinese brought in more reinforcements. The entire Indian battalion, which is about 800, 850 strong or even 1,000 strong, also joined in. And the fight, the fisticuffs, the stone pelting, the iron rod blows being exchanged in that at that height, altitude of about 16,000 feet, started and went on till midnight, according to my information that I received in the preliminary stage. And of course, soldiers went helter-skelter from both sides. They went missing because they were chasing each other. They were fighting with each other. Thankfully, no shots were fired, but that's hardly any solace because the injuries are grievous because both sides, going by their experience during the Pangangso clash on 5th and 6th of May, and then later some jostling at PP14 on 10th and 11th of May, had come prepared. The Chinese seem to have brought in iron rods, sticks studded with studs and metal tips, and some stones. Of course, Indians also had some of their own equipment. And from the information that one is getting, both sides have had grievous injuries to many more people than we actually have got information on or confirmation on right now. So this went on till midnight. They went and dispersed at around midnight because I think they would have got exhausted. And then in the morning, senior officers from both sides rushed to the spot. They've had meetings at the GOC level, the General Officer Commanding level. A Major General from Indian side, a Major General from their side had come there. And then, of course, they have talked. The phone lines have burnt between the Indian side in Delhi and the Chinese side in Beijing. There is a lot of effort to de-escalate or even talk. There have been conciliatory statements from China, although China has accused, initially, has accused India of trespassing into their territory and being the aggressor. In fact, the statement by the Chinese Foreign Ministry says that Indian troops crossed into their territory twice, and yet there was an attempt to play it down from the Chinese side. They haven't given their casualty figures as yet, from what I can see. But the statement is revealing in a way. If I can read out to that statement to you, a bit parts of it actually. Their official statement said, the Foreign Ministry spokesperson actually said the Chinese side has lodged a strong protest and solemn representation to the Indian side, urging it to strictly restrain its frontline troops, to abide by the consensus and not cross the borderline and make any unilateral movement that could complicate the border situation. This is part of that statement, which says that please don't cross the borderline. And clearly, the Chinese have been aggressive in their statements, aggressive in their behavior, because the initial Indian statement actually only said that during the process of disengagement, this clash happened, which clearly, according to the sequence of events that I've just shared with you, is what must have happened really, that Indian side was trying to verify whether disengagement is taking place or not. And in that, all this has happened. Unfortunate, we must grieve and be anguished about the loss of life of the Indian officer and his soldiers. There may be little more numbers being added to that death toll, but this is something unprecedented. If all of you have, those who have watched over the past month and a half, we have been saying that after 1975, there has been not a single shot fired. But many of you will remember that I had said it in the first program I did with Jaydev Ranade, a former intelligence officer, and Lieutenant General Huda, that how long before all the protocols, all the systems, all the pacts, all the agreements on the border to maintain peace and tranquility breaks down or break down. And that's exactly what has happened now. The deaths are first in many years, as I said, after 1975. The last violent firearms clash had taken place at Nathula. As all of you know, India had given a bloody nose to the Chinese at that point in time. But in this case, this is really something unprecedented, which neither side, I think, was really prepared to accept or prepared to even visualize since this standoff, the current standoff has begun. Let me go back a little bit. I think we've not been able to get General Parnaik online, but we will bring him back in a couple of hours at around 6 o'clock when we will do another live broadcast on this same channel, same link, or same platform. But let me tell you that this was the fear that policymakers have had for a number of years now, that the intensity and the ferocity of the clashes, of the standoffs, have been increasing on the India-China border, on the line of actual control, since 2013. 2013, as I mentioned, the Chinese came in about 15 to 19 kilometers into Depsan, north of where this clash has occurred, and sat there for 21 days with about 700-800 soldiers. And then in 2014, we saw what happened at Chumur. 2017, we had Doklam. But this is completely quantitatively and qualitatively completely different, because the the kind of strength that the Chinese brought in, of course, arguably on their side of the LAC, the build-up was unprecedented. They came in at 3-4 different places. The build-up was on both sides. India responded to the Chinese build-up. And I think the intention of the Chinese this time was to provoke a violent response. So they first did something violent in Nakula in Sikkim. Then we had this same thing on Pangangso Lake, north bank of the Pangangso Lake, and then around Hot Springs and Galwan, as where we are seeing this. And the worrying factor is that the whole issue is that we've got the protocols breaking down. After agreeing to, there I can see General Parnaik about to join us. And after seeing what had happened at Galwan, I think there will be serious rethink about what needs to be done. But let me not take much time. General Parnaik, if you can hear me, I've just given a brief rundown to the audience about what exactly happened, the sequence of events on Monday night. But let me go forward a little bit and ask you your first reaction to what has happened. You have handled the Chinese in Arunachal Pradesh, in Sikkim, and Ladakh. In your own experience, this is unprecedented, right?
Yes. Nitin, this is typical Chinese behavior, insolent and unrelenting. That is the problem with them. So what has happened is indeed very sad, and it just shows that Chinese, despite talks and despite agreement to the fact that both sides agreed when the corps commanders met on 6th of June, that Galwan hot spring areas, the Chinese will go back to their status quo, which means they had to go to their post 1. It's called post 1 across the LAC from where they came. It is normal for Indian troops to monitor this disengagement, and they have been doing so for the last week or so. So what is happening is that they went back some distance and stayed put. From there they disengaged and went back. Ultimately, as I learned, they were at patrol point 14 in that area, general area, where the LAC is supposed to be, as per our perception. And they acknowledge that because they do not come this side generally. So they were at the PP14, and this unit had been sending them, showing banners and telling them to go back and things like this, but they were adamant and they stayed put there. So exactly what must have happened on ground, I can't say, but obviously the commanding officer with his troops moved ahead to talk to them, to persuade them to go back. And what I learned is that initially they seemed to be getting ready to go back. And suddenly they turned back and the scuffle started. It all started probably by people on the, you have seen the imageries of the Galwan River there. There are steep embankments on both sides. It's a big steep valley through which the Galwan River passes. So on those hills, I think some troops had taken positions. So they started throwing stones. And then it became a free-for-all because the CO and his men were caught in this chaos. And when the Chinese resorted to this kind of tactics, our troops also would have retaliated. I have no doubts on that. And it is very sad that we have lost the CO and we have lost 2 more soldiers. Some have been injured. The WTC is talking of 5 casualties of the PLA and about 11 injured. I don't know how true it is. But my assessment of this whole situation is that there is this inbuilt reluctance amongst these troops which are on ground. When we were resolving DEPSA, we faced a similar situation. We were
Okay.
told by the Foreign Office that they have discussed this issue with Beijing, and Beijing has assured us that these people will go back, they'll pull back. I think similar thing happened in Doklam also. But the troops on the ground were not relenting. They were not going back. And obviously, in our effort to tell them to get back, some heated exchanges would have taken place.
Right.
And that's what has happened there. It is very unfortunate. So, what is the way forward? How do
So,
we do the
1 minute,
situation?
I'll just interrupt you. General Patnaik, I'll just interrupt you. I think your volume is slightly low. The audience is saying that they are not even able to hear you. So, if you can
Okay.
get a speaker or
I,
get the volume
I,
up. Okay, before we come in, we'll also recap what is General Patnaik just said. General Patnaik said that this is improving and in 2013 when similar standoff had happened, and the troops in the ground were not willing to listen to the instructions in the crowd. This does not happen in the Indian Army. It happens in Chinese Army clearly, according to what the Chinese message or his experience is. So, therefore, it's very unfortunate that such a situation will occur. Now, all the good work built over the last 30 years or so have not resulted in any progress in the line of control or, let us say, negotiations going forward. And all those protocols are useless. In the heat of the moment, we can see that these things are happening. The Chinese are not willing to abide by the agreement that was done. At least the troops are not willing to do it, and that has resulted in this unfortunate, the loss of the commanding officer and his 2 soldiers, and maybe more soldiers. We don't know. But clearly, the whole issue is what next? I wanted to speak to General Parnaik on this. I'm hoping he'll come back. We'll reconnect with him. But what next is that I think General Parnaik was mentioning to me before we came on this broadcast that the Indian Army must take high quality video recording of these process of disengagements that take place at every place, and then send it to them, because unless the proof is shown, nobody is going to believe what exactly happened on the ground. But from the sequence of events that even he's got separately, and from what I got, this was the sequence of event where we lost the CO, and therefore there he's back. General Parnaik is back. General, I was just speaking to them about what next. I think we've lost you again, but yeah, there you are. Yeah,
No.
can you hear me?
Okay.
Yeah. So
I
I
can
was,
hear you.
yes, I was telling the audience that you had some suggestions for going forward. What should we be doing? What the Indian Army should be doing? If you can tell us that.
Okay. Okay. My suggestion is, and that is how we used to deal with it, whenever we have such a tricky situation, because of the behavioral pattern of the Chinese PLA, what we used to do, we used to ensure that a high resolution video camera was carried by our troops always. And whenever we met them, we officially conveyed to them the instructions of the delegates who had met and agreed to step back. And it was formally also handed over to their reps or to their commanding officer or the company commander, whosoever was there. Everything was filmed. Having done that, we got back and we just observed them. we took the lat long of that area where this was all happening. So there was proof enough to say who was where. The Chinese can't go and lie now to say that we have crossed into their areas. It is the most ridiculous argument that they are putting. Once that is done, if they still didn't move, it was reported to the highest authority, maybe to the corps commander there.
Right.
And he raised it with his counterpart opposite, or the divisional commander. Now, that is a formal way of ensuring that the message has been passed, that we have verified that they haven't gone, and we insist that since the decision was taken, you go back there. Invariably, when this method was evoked, the troops would go back.
Right.
Because they knew it was formal, and they also have seen us filming them, so they could not have gone and made some sort of a false statements to their superiors.
Sure.
Now, if suppose they still did not go, then the matter should have been raised to the army headquarters, to the Foreign Office, and the
Right.
Foreign Office be handed over all the photographs and the video to tell them this is what your troops are doing on ground.
Yeah.
I think that is the correct method by not getting involved physically with them. This situation is different from what happened in Pengongso, where we were trying to stop them from coming into our areas and they got involved in fist fights. It
Yes.
is different from when in Gokhale we tried to tell them not to come into this area and they insisted, and there were, scuffles, and there were pushings, and iron rods and sticks and stones were used, which is really shameful. For a uniformed person, this is an unruly, uncouth behavior.
Yes.
And I think if we had done this, and the matter was taken up formally through the Foreign Office, a demarche
Yes.
to the ambassador, a message to the Foreign Office with all the proof,
Right.
I don't see any way why they wouldn't have obeyed. And plus, the world would have seen what Chinese are doing. Today, they will get away if we have not done all this.
Right.
And the result is precious lives have been lost, which is very unfortunate.
And
How we
also,
deal?
sir, just interrupting you for a moment, and also the fact that they are now saying, they're telling us that you are the aggressors, you came into our territory, and your troops twice crossed crossed into our territory. So clearly, they have thought through the entire process on how to be aggressive throughout this entire episode.
Exactly. So, as I told you, when dealing with Chinese, you have to beat them in their mind. If you don't do that, they are always up to clever tricks. They will
Right.
plan something and drag you into it. And
Yes.
as much as you say now and tell everybody that they were at petrol point 14, now who knows where is petrol point 14? It's a wide waste terrain there. They are
Right.
rocky. It's a steep gorge in which this river flows. But
Sure.
still, the point at issue is it is not post 1 in any case
Right.
where they came from. Post
Correct.
1 is in a flatter area outside
Yes.
this gorge.
Right.
So these photographs clearly say that they were in an area which they were not supposed to be. Secondly, I also have a issue on the negotiations which took place when the two commanders agreed that a pullback should take place.
Yes.
That should have been qualified by a time and a date by which the pullout should have been completed, and both the sides should have reported it to their delegates. That is
Right.
when shaking hands take place. That is the routine. You
Correct.
decide to go, shake hands, pull back, go to your places. We go and see that you have gone. They come and see that we have gone. We report to the delegates, then meet again, shake hands, and the protocol is completed. So there has been a serious violation of the protocol by the Chinese.
Right.
Indian troops were only obeying orders to see that they cross.
Correct.
They were pleading with them, they were requesting them, they were suggesting to them, they were drawing their attention to the fact that this has been agreed between your and our commander.
Exactly.
So you have got instructions, that's why you have gone back. So
Absolutely.
go back to where you were.
Yes.
I don't think there is any doubt in those issues. And the Foreign Office is taking a serious view about this.
Right.
I'm sure they will raise it with Beijing, and we will demand an apology on this. That is the first thing.
Of course, very unfortunate incident, and I'm going to recap to the audience. Unfortunately, there is no time to take questions, although there are many questions and suggestions. But the fact is, let me just recap this, General Parnaik, before we wind up this particular discussion and this live broadcast. But you have given us an excellent overview of what happens and how to deal with the Chinese. If you have any other suggestions, please tell us. Then I'll recap the sequence of events, what happened there last night.
Other than what I have already said, when you want to take this whole thing forward, I think these small areas of concern should be built into the agreements which are made between the delegate commanders who are talking. There should be no gap left where individuals will have to take their initiative and try and resolve it. I don't think that is required. We are dealing at a national level, and both the delegates have to be alive to this. And I think our delegate leader, whenever they meet again, I think they are meeting, and they had a meeting today. The meeting will be rough, both sides alleging. I wish the photographs and the lat long was there. The proof was on the table, and the Chinese delegation would have no other way.
Hopefully, we'll have that, sir. But thank you very much. I think the clear message from you is that there should be no ambiguity when dealing with the Chinese, because they are masters in deception and taking the matters in their hand and being uncouth, as you said. But let me just recap to the audience my final point here, that this is what exactly happened last night or yesterday evening. The Indian commanding officer of the 16th Bihar Regiment was waiting to ensure compliance of the agreement that had been arrived at between the corps commanders. They were at patrol point 14. They were to fall back. The Chinese were to fall back to post 1, which is 5 kilometers east of the patrol point 14. The disengagement plan was in place, but they were not complying. So the CO was there. And suddenly, a group of PLA soldiers turned back on the CO and his two companions, and actually attacked them with iron rods and stones, and sort of injured them grievously. The moment the CO was knocked down, the entire team of his battalion then joined the fisticuffs and the jostling and the physical fights, the brawl. It was the most serious physical fight that has happened on the line of actual control in this nearly 65 years of the contest on the border. And this went on till midnight, I'm told. There was chaos. People were running helter-skelter. The troops disengaged. But they're all staggering back to their units and their respective sides. As we speak, there have been meetings between the GOCs on either side. Hopefully, temperatures are down. But unfortunately, India has lost 3 soldiers, 1 officer and 2 soldiers. And we don't know what the death toll or the casualty figures are on the Chinese side yet. Although there are numbers being spoken about 5 casualties, fatal casualties on the Chinese side, but there's no confirmation on that. But General Parnaik, once again, thank you very much for joining us at short notice and giving us the perspective, which is, I think, of a soldier who has served majority of his time on the Chinese border. Thank you very much once again, and please don't forget, viewers, to join us again at 1800 hours IST, and we will come back with some more information perhaps. Thank you very much for joining StratNewsGlobal.